Welcome back to U.S. Governance Now. The House of Representatives has made history by voting to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, making him the first cabinet member to face impeachment in nearly 150 years. In a close call, the Republican-led chamber voted 214 to 213 for the measure after the first attempt failed last week. 210 Democrats voted against the impeachment, along with 3 Republican representatives, Tom McClintock of California, Ken Buck of Colorado, and Mike Gallagher of Wisconsin. Many Republicans blame Mr. Mayorkas for an unprecedented influx of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. President Joe Biden is calling the vote a blatant act of unconstitutional partisanship and a political stunt. The matter will now head to the Democratic-led Senate. More than 6.3 million migrants have entered the U.S. illegally since 2021. Meanwhile, the Democrat Tom Suozzi has won the swing U.S. congressional district left vacant when former Republican Congressman George Santos was expelled last December. Mr. Suozzi, whose Tuesday night victory was over rival Mazi Philip, will finish Mr. Santos's term following his removal from Congress over allegations of fraud. With 87% of the estimated vote tallied, Mr. Suozzi had 54%, while rival Ms. Philip had 45%. In a victory speech briefly interrupted by protesters calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, Mr. Suozzi focused on unity and healing political differences, saying it's time to find common ground and start delivering for the people of America. Election marks a return to Congress for the Democrat, who previously served 3 terms in the House, but opted unsuccessfully in 2022 to run for governor in New York instead. Let's get more now from our correspondent in Washington, Maria Bird. Maria, we're back to talking about U.S. politics, and this is pretty interesting, isn't it? Away from, the presidential race and the race for the White House, history has been made with this impeachment move. President Biden says is unconstitutional. By the books, was this an unconstitutional move, or are there other shortcomings that the House is looking at?
You're exactly correct. There's a whole host of shortcomings that potentially they're looking at. As we know, this was a nominee. This is a cabinet member of the president. And so he obviously is not viewing this as something that was constitutionally done, basis of why they did it and how they are saying that he was eligible for impeachment. So that is expected to come from the president and the Democratic side of the party and of the House. And so we are seeing that obviously there are a number of things that Democrats are calling forth and saying that made this impeachment unconstitutional. But what we do know, as you mentioned earlier, this was done over 100 years ago. In the late 1800s, we have seen an impeachment of a cabinet member before. And knowing where we are as a country, knowing that the area of the border and border control has been a major contentious area between Republicans and Democrats, we know that the Republican Party, specifically those that support the former President Trump, are very much outraged by the number of immigrants that have been able to migrate into the U.S. and the lack of additional security and their whole push for the border wall. We know that what our former president put as a priority during his administration. So this is not unexpected. As you've mentioned, we are in a very tight and very contentious and challenging presidential campaign season. And so this is another way to try to obviously put forth further challenge in the Democratic Party as they look forward to presidential campaigning.
Yes, Maria, and immigration has been a huge problem for the U.S., especially after the COVID pandemic. America's seen more influx of people coming into the country, and immigration remains a huge problem. What was the situation like during Trump's presidency? Was it a major problem then? Because there wasn't a lot of news reports about, immigration problems.
Well, if you look at it, the former president came in and he campaigned initially on the fact that he was going to increase border control. the wall became a focus point for his administration. His number one goal was to limit the amount of immigration into the United States. So that was one of his priorities. And so when you compare his priorities to what we're seeing today, and we know that was one of the Biden administration's focal points as well, which was to reduce the restrictions on immigration, was to allow asylum seekers to enter the U.S., and to also ensure that those that are at the border in some of those holding facilities were being treated fairly and humanely. And so there's a very different policy agenda between the two presidents. And so that is where we're seeing the difference in what we're seeing today with the number of migrants entering into the United States.
Maria, what are your sources telling you? Will this matter sail through the Senate?
Well, we have not seen it before. We know that it's going to have to be a case, and there's going to have to be a hearing done. So it's not going to be just a matter of, as we saw in the House, kind of bringing forth a vote. And so it'll be a much larger process. We don't foresee that this is going to actually pass the Senate. But what we know is that this is unprecedented even to pass the House in this way. And we also know that this is a major area of concern for many Republicans. So I think it's going to really depend on what we see happen over the next few days.
And George Santos is finally out of office. I mean, he lied, a truckload of lies to get him to where he was. He's now being replaced by Tom Suozzi, I believe. Well, thanks to the Democrats and all the work put into getting him out of office, winning by a significant margin. Does this say anything about the mood in the country at the moment? Because it seemed newsmen were more, consumed with finding out exactly what would happen to Santos. And I know that, they badgered most of the lawmakers about, Santos's presence still in the Senate, even after it was found out that he had lied, to get to that position.
Well, I think it does say something about the mood of the country, but specifically the mood of New York. We know the former president is a New Yorker. I mean, that was one of his very strong bases. That's one of the areas that he's had a long relationship politically with, and obviously from a business standpoint as well. And so to see that section of New York, when you talk about Queens, New York, and Long Island, New York, those are areas very centrally located and near Manhattan. And so that does say something about his support in that area, which I think he has hoped and has betted on having that type of support, a stronger level of support. And so potentially we could be seeing Democrats having a larger majority of support for the current President Biden as a result of what we've seen with this race yesterday evening. So I think that is more so telling the mood of the entire country. I think would be a little bit of a larger feat, but to say that in the New York community, in the Northeast, potentially we could be seeing a greater look and gain and support toward the current president.
Not a dull moment in U.S. politics. Thanks again, Maria. Unofficial results show that Defense Minister Prabowo Subianto has a strong lead in Indonesia's presidential poll. Is going up against Anies Baswedan and Ganjar Pranowo. Prabowo Subianto, a former Special Forces commander, is dogged by allegations of human rights abuses and disappearances, prompting fears the country will slide back into its authoritarian past. More than 200 million people registered to vote across the archipelago in one of the world's biggest and most complex elections. The president of the Dominican Republic, Luis Abinader, is calling on the international community to provide the money it promised to fund the multinational security support mission in Haiti as soon as possible, or risk a catastrophic collapse. Talking to reporters outside the Security Council, Abinader was insistent the international community cannot remain indifferent in the face of the humanitarian emergencies that have emerged and accumulated in recent years. And in the words of the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, a global food crisis is creating a hellscape of hunger and heartache for many of the world's poorest people. Guterres was addressing an open meeting at the Security Council on climate and security, warning that hunger fuels unrest. He also spoke of the accelerating climate change, which according to him also undermines peace.
A global food crisis is creating a hellscape of hunger and heartache for many of the world's poorest people. And the climate crisis is accelerating with a deadly force, and last year was the hottest ever. Both these facts undermine peace, empty bellies, fuel unrest. At the same time, climate and conflict are two leading drivers of global food crisis. Where wars rage, anger reigns. Whether due to the displacement of people, destruction of agriculture, damage to infrastructure, or deliberate policies of denial. Meanwhile, climate chaos is imperiling food production the world over. Floods and droughts destroy crops. Ocean changes disrupt fishing. Rising seas degrade land and fresh water, and shifting weather patterns ruin harvests and spawn pests. Without action, the situation will deteriorate. Conflicts are multiplying. The climate crisis is set to spiral as emissions continue to rise, and acute food insecurity has been increasing year on year. The World Food Programme estimates that over 330 million people were affected in 2023. And it has warned of an acute deterioration in 18 hunger hotspots earlier this year. To avoid mounting threats to international peace and security, we must step in and act now to break the deadly links between conflict, climate, and food insecurity.
Coming closer to the continent now, Liberia's President Joseph Boakai has appointed a retired female Brigadier General, Geraldine George, as the acting Minister of Defense after protests by military wives forced the resignation of her predecessor. It's the first time a woman is serving in the post, although it is unclear why Mrs. George has been appointed only in an acting capacity. She enlisted in the army in 2006 as it was being rebuilt following the end of a civil war and rose to become part of the elite forces. She has served as the Deputy Chief of Staff for the last 6 years. After Mr. Boakai was sworn in as president on January 22nd, he appointed her as the Deputy for Administration in the Defense Ministry. Her promotion comes after Defense Minister Prince Charles Johnson III resigned. His appointment was confirmed by Liberia's Senate only last week, but the protests forced him to step down. Dozens of people are dead, several more missing after two boats collided on the Congo River near Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo. In dramatic images taken moments after they crashed into one another, horrified residents watched from the riverbank as small boats came out in a bid to rescue passengers. It's not clear yet how many were saved or what caused the accident between the two boats, which were loaded with people and goods. Deadly boating accidents occur frequently in the DRC, where rivers are an important transport route for goods. Most river traffic is run by small, informal operators, and crews often overload the vessels. Here in Nigeria, the Rwandan High Commissioner, Mr. Christophe Bazivamo, has expressed his country's continued commitment to strengthen bilateral relations with Nigeria. Mr. Bazivamo made the statements at the weekend during the celebration of Rwanda's 30th National Heroes Day in Abuja. The envoy says Rwanda and Nigeria have weathered several storms of adversity, adding that both countries can build a brighter future for their people by shared experiences and expertise. Mr. Bazivamo, who spoke on the theme, Our Heroism, Our Dignity, said the history of Rwanda was built on the values of resilience, unity, and dignity. Rwanda's National Heroes Day is held every year to honor the exceptional Rwandans who demonstrated the highest values of patriotism and sacrifice and made significant contributions to nation building, liberation, and unity.
National Heroes Day, which is marked normally every 1st of February, holds a special significance for the Rwandan people. On this day, we reflect on the sacrifices of those who came before us those who fought for our freedom, unity, and progress, those who have embodied the highest values of patriotism for our country and its people. The history of Rwanda is built on the values of resilience, unity, and dignity, as stated in the theme of this year, our heroism, our dignity. These values, tested during the 1994 genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda, have served as the springboard for our Renaissance journey of reconciliation, reconstruction, and development. Our heroes inspire us in general, and young people in particular, to shape our country's future.
Still ahead after the break, you're wondering why I'm not wearing red. It's Valentine's Day. How are you celebrating the day of love? We'll bring you more on this. Those who are not celebrating, stay with us. Welcome back to the program. The United Kingdom has signed an enhanced trade and investment partnership with Nigeria to boost trade relations between both countries. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Mrs. Doris Uzoka-Nite, signed the agreement alongside the UK Secretary of State, Department for Business and Trade, Kemi Badenoch, in Abuja. The partnership is the first the UK has signed with an African country and is designed to grow the trade relationship between the two.
Continuing her engagements on this three-day visit to Nigeria, the UK Secretary of State, Department of Business and Trade, Kemi Badenoch, arrives at the Bank of Industry Conference Hall in Abuja for the signing of the Enhanced Trade and Investment Partnership. The British High Commissioner to Nigeria underscores the importance of the Memorandum of Understanding in enhancing economic growth in both countries.
That we can show that we can talk the talk, we need to walk the walk. And this MOU provides a fantastic platform for our two governments to work together, both to ease the restrictions on trade and investment, but also to help navigate each other's system.
The same sentiments are shared by Nigeria's Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Doris Uzoka-Nite, who adds that barriers to growth of local businesses are being addressed.
These opportunities will not develop themselves. We will need to mutually and intentionally work hard at materializing them. And this goes beyond giving nice speeches about how we love each other and how the ETB is supposed to help us. It involves active cooperation through dialogue, robust exchange of information, economic cooperation, and offering assistance when needed.
The Enhanced Trade and Investment Partnership, ETIP, is the first the United Kingdom is signing with an African country and initiates further collaboration on the United Kingdom's Developing Countries Trade Scheme, DCTS. With the signing of this Memorandum of Understanding, 99% of existing Nigerian exports to the UK will be duty-free. Tariffs have been removed from Nigerian goods, which promotes value addition in non-oil export sectors like cocoa butter, sesame oil, and clothing. And there are now more opportunities in sectors such as finance, legal services, and the creative industry. Mrs. Badenoch explains that this progress is one that requires full commitment from both countries.
The key thing I want to emphasize within ETIP is that it requires all of us, not just in government, but even especially in the private sector, to take advantage of it. Later on, we're going to be signing other MOUs between private sector companies. They also use these agreements as a way to facilitate the work that they do. So what we're not saying that after this agreement is signed, all the problems in the UK and Nigeria will disappear. Far from it. This is yet another opportunity for us to create those linkages that enable us to work together.
Apart from improving on the already existing £7 billion trade figures Nigeria has with the United Kingdom, it is hoped that the benefits of this enhanced trade and investment partnership will trickle down to Nigerians, especially as the country tries to navigate a rough economic climate. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
And they did not win the AFCON, but bronze medalists Bafana received a hero's welcome upon returning home following their, arguably commendable performance that led them to the semi-finals at the 2014 tournament in Côte d'Ivoire. Although not as grand as the celebrations for the Springboks after their Rugby World Cup win for Bayana, after their CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations victory in 2022, the atmosphere, however, was equally exhilarating.
Returning from the Africa Cup of Nations as the third best team on the African continent, thousands gathered at the OR Tambo International Airport to welcome back the Hugo Bros-led team in the early hours of today. The team made the nation proud by achieving a third place, finishing at the tournament, which concluded with the host Ivory Coast beating Nigeria 2-1 in the final this past Sunday.
Today we are here to welcome Bafana from their heroic journey to AFCON. These are the future Ronan Williams. These are the future Grand Kekana. So they are here to enjoy themselves. We are here to welcome Bafana. I think it's 3 a.m. in the morning. It's 25 past 3 in the morning. So these are heroes. They didn't sleep, waiting for the real hero.
Come here to support Bafana. One number 3. We're proud. Since 1996, now can see Bafana is coming back. We must support the team. The team is going too far, and then this team, no one can do anything. We like the team, and the team is going too far. We love you. Bafana, we love you. Keep fighting. Keep working hard. We love you, South Africa. We love you, the people in South Africa.
The last time South Africans flocked to the airport to welcome Bafana was more than 24 years ago, when they won bronze at the 2000 AFCON edition, co-hosted by Ghana and Nigeria.
Come on, South Africa! Come on, Thank you very much to our captain. Thank you very much to our warriors. Thank you very much to all South Africans who came out in your numbers. I see a lot of blue, green and gold. I see a lot of red among you. We want to thank you for supporting and rallying behind this team.
EFF leader Julius Malema, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi and SAFA President Danny Jordan joined the scores of South Africans to give Bafana a hero's welcome. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
So celebrations for the Ivorian football team continued as the country marked its victory at the African Cup of Nations. Players, coaches and officials were received by the President Alassane Ouattara for reception at the Presidential Palace. The victorious Elephants received medals from the President, and each member of the squad received a monetary gift. In the country's National Order of Merit, team officials were awarded the rank of commander, while the coaches and players were named chevalier and officers. The president also lauded the team for their bravery and resilience throughout the tournament. The hosts' progression to the final had seemed unlikely in the early stages of the competition, but the team fought back to defeat Nigeria 2-1 in the final on Sunday. Yes, it is Valentine's Day, and as I said earlier, a lot of people thought I would wear red today, but just to educate you on that, purple is also a color of love. So, how did Nigerians celebrate the Valentine's Day? Our reporter, Ladi Williams, has more on this.
It's Valentine's Day. Lovers globally are celebrating today. It's time for you to take that significant other out, find ways to show them love, at this time. But with the cost of living crisis, food inflation over 33%, definitely is getting really expensive to show love. So I'm going to be speaking with a restaurant owner. That's the owner of Koa Lagos, Temi Tokwe Akogo. She's going to be telling me all about Valentine's spending, what to expect compared to the same period last year. All right, let's go.
Mrs. Temitope Akogun is a 29-year-old multifaceted entrepreneur with a passion for driving social change through enterprise. I and Temitope sat down to get a feel of what businesses expect this Valentine.
Thanks for coming, and I'm excited about this chat. In terms of this year, we have a couple of reservations, and we're still looking forward to some last-minute ones. One thing I've noticed is even though it's there's a lot of hardship in the land, people will still treat themselves when they need to.
I know most restaurants, pay a lot to aesthetics. They pay a lot of attention. They pay for it to make it look pleasing. And at the end of the day, you find some customers are attracted to whatever, aesthetics you have. And sometimes some just want to come take pictures.
There's a gap in the market for things like this in this area. You see things like this mostly on the island. And there was definitely a need for something like this to come to the mainland, because there are lots of places you can just go and eat, but they're not necessarily like celebratory places. They don't look that nice for photos and all. And let's be honest, it's nice to be in a space that is cozy and beautiful. But the challenge comes when people just want to take photos. We have some people that come and just order a drink, and they can be here for hours just taking pictures, moving around, from one place to the other, one table to the other, messing up our cutlery, making us rewash stuff. But what we've done now is to just put like a minimum spend in place.
So this table looks amazing. Like it just feels like everything is here, at this point. So I'm gonna dig in now. I hope you don't get too hungry, at this point watching this. So I'm just gonna take a bite, get the sink in.
I have to say, I am so jealous of Laddie Williams eating up all that food. But 14th of February, as we said, is Valentine's Day around the world. 8 countries, however, will not be taking part in any of the celebrations. Unlike the show of love through flowers, gifts, and dinner receptions, some Western countries choose not to celebrate Valentine's Day because of different religious beliefs. Uzbekistan, for one, Iran, Malaysia, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, India, and Russia are countries not celebrating Valentine's Day. Instead of observing Valentine's Day, people in Uzbekistan celebrate the birthday of their country's hero, Babur, a Mughal emperor. Iran, on the other hand, tagged the holiday as a decadent Western custom. Malaysia banned the occasion since 2005, while Pakistan's High Court has done the same. It did that in 2018. Saudi Arabia is a conservative country, and officials strictly imposed a ban on the holiday. Well, it's not a holiday necessarily, but selling roses, red products, and love-themed cards are banned in advance of February 14. Owing to its independence revolution from the British Empire in 1947, the Indian government refused to advocate Western values and culture. But we do hope that you're celebrating all of the love that you can. February 14 comes once a year, but remember to love yourself all of the year. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.